Creepy things happen before the grave.
I'm Being Hunted by a Pack of Werewolves, Part 3, by Cesly1987. We stood with our hands up, facing the giant wolf approaching us. This one stood at least 7 foot tall, and still was hunched over, and had to be over 300 pounds. He wore no tattered clothes. His body was completely engulfed in jet black fur, with stripes of white around his eyes and ears. His left eye gold and his right eye reflecting green back at us. Behind us, we could hear the growling and screaming of the cop fighting the wolf that grabbed him from behind. More gunshots rang out, and I hoped the poor cop was able to wound his monstrous attacker before he was killed. Sean leaned over to me and whispered, "The sirens! The cop car!" I was vaguely aware of what he meant. I knew the car alarm earlier hurt their eardrums, but how was I supposed to get to the car surrounded by both of them? "Now!" he shouted. I was really starting to get pissed off. How was I supposed to know what to do every time he yelled something and started shooting? And shooting he did. He quick drew the pistol he had stolen and fired off a continuous stream at the big black wolf. I spun to make a mad dash to the driver's seat with the door open. I jumped into the cramped seat and looked down at all the buttons mounted into the middle panel. At first, my panic made it impossible to comprehend what any of them meant. I was shaken back into reality as Sean's body was slammed down onto the windshield next to the embedded manhole cover. The force of the impact made him crush the glass inward like a cracked shell of an egg. Finally, my brain kicked into gear and I saw a switch labeled Siren with 3 settings. I cranked that bad boy all the way up and the car lit up like a Christmas tree. The takedown lights came on, flooding light in all directions. The red and blue lights flashed vigorously and the siren belted out its ear-splitting tune. All of that extra light exposed Alexei, towering right in front of the car. I could see his gigantic frame through the smashed windshield and around Sean's limp body, his eyes burning holes down at me. He grabbed his ears with huge paws and whimpered in pain from the sudden blare of the siren. I jerked the car into drive and was going to hit Alexei with 1,000 pounds of charger, but I heard a wet thump on the window beside me. I turned to see the poor policeman who had stopped us. He was missing half of his face, with an eyeball gone and his cheek totally ripped away to show his teeth underneath. I saw the absolute fear in his remaining eye and almost opened the door for him to come in. Almost. Something hit the cop with enough force to shatter the glass. He was launched headfirst into the car and across my lap, lodged between me and the steering wheel. A large claw reached in after him and grabbed me by the hair. It was the wolf from earlier, the one Sean had peppered with the shotgun on the street. This wolf had seen better days. It looked like the cop had shot him a couple of times before being smashed in through the car window, because the wolf was wheezing from multiple gunshots to the chest. And Alexei quickly stepped out of the way of the launching vehicle. I rocketed away from the wolves while he still had a hold of my hair. There was a painful rip as he yanked a handful of hair from my head. I screamed in pain and tried to see around the dead cop on top of me and Sean's unresponsive body embedded in the shattered windshield. I swerved and skidded away from the wolves down the deserted streets, my vehicle wailing and lighting up the city as I desperately tried to escape. I tried to push the dead cop back out of the window, but had a better time pulling him most of the way in, his legs sticking awkwardly out the window. It was a miracle Sean stayed put on the windshield, until my tires lost traction on a slick patch of road, and I slid sideways into a parked car on the street at around 40 miles per hour. Like a patient being transferred from one gurney to another, Sean rolled sideways off my hood and onto the snow-covered hood of the parked car. This was ridiculous. I knew I had to stop and check on him and get this dead body off of me. I turned off the lights and sirens to leave us on a suddenly quiet street. I pulled the car out enough to open the door and wrestle my way out of the driver's seat. As much as I wanted to run to Sean, I took the time to pull the dead cop out and lay him down on the street. The cop's gun was missing, so I snatched his pepper spray and taser. I finally made my way over to Sean. His eyes were closed and he looked like he was sleeping like a baby, with soft snow piled around him like cushions. The snow around his right shoulder was colored red, with blood from a new bite mark. I would have taken him for dead if there wasn't the slight fog of breath coming out of his mouth. "Sean!" I yelled, slapping him lightly on his cold cheeks. I kept shaking him and he only moaned. A wolf's howl pierced the air behind us, and his eyes shot open. For an instant, I thought they glowed golden in the moonlight. He sat up with a start and grabbed me by the neck, his teeth grinding as he growled at me. "Sean, stop!" I gasped at him. His face did not change, and his grip tightened, and he looked at me like I was a bug he was about to squish. I had done it. I had pushed him too far. He was a killer, and now he was going to kill me. Maybe I deserved it. Finally, he blinked, and the cruel look of anger slid off his face, to be replaced with recognition. He let me go and looked around frightened.
"We need to go,"
he said.
"I can smell them,"
he said groggily. "What?" I mumbled. "Are you okay?" I reached out to touch his bloody shoulder. He looked down at the bloody wound in confusion.
"Yeah, I actually feel great,"
he said in awe. His pupils were dilated, and he smiled a little. "All Sleeping Beauty needed was a little nap," I said sarcastically, and pulled him off the car. He flopped into the passenger seat of the patrol car beside me, and I cranked the battered car up. I flipped the yellow taser in front of his face. He took it after a moment of consideration.
"I guess the pepper spray stays with you,"
he stated with a half smile. Why was he so nonchalant? He was starting to freak me out.
"We need new wheels,"
he said in his normal emotionless tone.
"Every cop in the city will be gunning for us now. They probably called out our descriptions to dispatch before they were killed. Not a good look for us."
"I will park it after we put some distance between us and the pack," I said. Suddenly, the roof caved in over our heads from something very heavy slamming down on it. "Oh shit!" I screamed in terror from the sudden commotion. I stepped on the gas so fast we did a burnout before lurching forward. Sean reached down and flipped on the siren. It wailed sharply before there was a wretched clanging and screeching of the light bar and sirens being ripped out of its mounted position. The siren let out a pitiful whimper as it was flung to clatter in front of us, causing me to swerve the twisted debris. I knew our new passenger was one of the wolves, but which one? My question was answered as the legless body of a mutilated man was slapped against the windshield by the wolf on our roof. The man's intestines were dangling from his stomach as the wolf smeared his innards all over the windshield, obscuring my view with gore. It was one of the people I had doused with perfume. It had to be Mikhail performing this savagery. I was still racing down the mostly empty streets, only seeing the road out of a corner of an unblemished windshield. A white furred hand reached around through the busted window beside me. The large hand wrapped around my tiny left wrist and pulled it free from my grasp on the steering wheel, but I still held onto the steering wheel tightly with my right hand. The great strength of the wolf began to pull me up and out of my seat. "Sean, help!" I screamed with panic as half of my body was already out of the window. I held on desperately with my right hand, but my grip would be broken soon. I felt Sean straighten the steering wheel. He anchored himself around my waist. Now I could see the wolf who was pulling me up by my hand. It was a snow-white wolf, contrasted with bright red blood smeared all over his face and muscular chest. Its eyes were also bright red dots against cloudy orbs. He held me up with his right arm, while his left hand dug into the top of the roof, holding him steadily atop his perch. I had never seen Mikhail as a wolf, but I knew this was the sadistic blonde-haired albino I had learned to hate. The cold air whipped across my face as his lips curled back in a cruel smile. I had lost my grip on the steering wheel and was only being kept halfway in the car by Sean's futile attempt to save me. I knew I was about to die as Mikhail opened his mouth, slobber flying out in long lines, until I felt something hard and plastic being placed in my hand. With Sean holding the lower part of my body, I swung my right hand up to place the taser under Mikhail's chin. He didn't even notice it before the doors of the taser cartridge popped open and 2 electric barbs shot straight up into the underside of his chin. The taser made its patented t-t-t-t-t sound as the monster's body seized up, his grip almost breaking my wrist. Sean must have heard the taser's rapid song and jerked me hard back down inside, cutting me up good on the broken glass. He slammed on the brakes and the car lurched as the tires screeched against the asphalt. The upper half of my body was flung forward to smack painfully against the door frame as Mikhail's body flew forward from the momentum to bounce and slide heavily across the icy road. At the end of his third rolling tumble, he righted himself to land deftly on all fours, skidding to turn and look at me with hatred in his red eyes. I unwedged my bruised and bloodied ribs from the door's window frame and grabbed the wheel, throwing the car into reverse. Mikhail's sleek white form began charging back at us as the beat-up cop car started to drive backwards. He was back on 2 feet now, at full sprint, inches away from being able to grab the hood of the car. I was looking out the back window and saw we were coming up on a T-junction. We would have to turn left or right, and Mikhail would be on us in an instant. Sean pulled out his old gun and announced loudly, "Turn the car for me to face him. I'll shoot him point blank." He quickly started rolling down his window. I thought we were out of ammo, but maybe Sean had one shot left, so I trusted him and did what he asked. While speeding backwards, we came to the turn. I whipped the wheel to turn Sean's window facing the charging Mikhail. Sean steadied his pistol with both hands, likely going for a precision headshot on the charging Mikhail. The two of them were face to face, Mikhail already within reaching distance, and point blank with Sean's pistol. "Play dead, Fido," he yelled at Mikhail. Mikhail's red eyes widened, and he quickly threw himself to the side. He slid behind the meager cover of a mailbox and traffic light on the street corner. No gunshot came, and Sean whipped his head around to scream at me, "Drive! Drive!" I slammed the car into drive and rocketed us forward and away from Mikhail. The rearview mirror showed a very confused white wolf getting back to his feet as he got smaller and smaller. The engine roared as we lost sight of Mikhail at the next turn. The bluff had worked. The wolves had learned Sean was proficient with firearms, and prima donna Mikhail didn't want half his face missing from a well-placed shot. I heard his howl following us as we left him behind. We sat for a while in silence, letting our nerves calm down as we twisted and turned through the city streets. It was obvious we had to get a new vehicle, as I had to hang my head out of the window to see where we were going half the time. Once I felt we were far enough away, I backed the beat-up cop car into a dark alley. We sat for a little while more in silence. Sean unwrapped the tape from around his arm and was amazed to find the bite marks had almost healed. We looked at each other worried, neither of us wanting to state the obvious, that he was changing into one of them. The quiet between us broken by my phone ringing. I looked at the number to see it was Mikhail calling. I answered it and put it on speakerphone for Sean to hear. After moments of static silence, Mikhail's wrathful and slightly whiny voice broke through. "You will die tonight, whore. You will die by my hand. You and your little guard dog will not deny me my right." Me and Sean looked at each other and shared the cringe. Mikhail continued with his vitriol. "You think you're a hero? A good sister? I didn't want your used-up, tainted flesh. I wanted your sweet sister. You think convincing Alexei's son to mate with her, that you saved her from the hunt? You are wrong. I will kill both of you tonight." It was true. I had used my charms to convince a foolish boy, Alexei's wolf son Nico, that if he liked me, I was nothing in comparison to my beautiful, pure sister. I convinced Nico my sister was the one he wanted. She was wifey material, or at least exclusive breeding material. I had noticed Mikhail eyeing my sister too. He wanted her, but for completely different reasons. Mikhail didn't want my sister's purity. He wanted her blood. He wanted his initiation kill to be her. I worked fast to seduce the young pup Nico. I spoke whispers of my sister during the early hours. I said the prince deserved the best mate, and my sister was the best. It would be a pairing against her will, but Nico was kind and gentle, for a wolf. So you can see Mikhail's anger when he chose my sister for his hunt and got the bargain basement model instead.
He got me.
Nico had gotten to his daddy's ear, and Alexei had denied the young upstart Mikhail his kill of my sister.
Take me off speakerphone,
Mikhail said calmly in a language only spoken between the clan. I understood the phrase and turned off the speaker and tucked the phone to my ear.
I have clan members loyal to me stationed at Annika's lodging.
He continued in normal speech.
Turn yourself into me, or I give the order to rip her throat out. You've had your fun, but I will kill your little sister if you don't let me kill you. I'll even make it quick if you don't make a fuss.
There was a pause, and I felt my heart drop. I knew Mikhail was selfish enough to go against the clan if he wasn't going to get his way. And he did have a group of human followers that followed him around like he was a superstar. He would kill my sister, and all of this would be for nothing.
The parking structure under the bridge, before you take the exit to the Wicker construction site.
He continued with directions.
Don't tell your guard dog. Bring him or leave him, I don't care. He's dead either way.
He paused.
You have 1 hour.
Mikhail hung up the phone and we sat in silence. Fresh falling snow covered the blood-caked windshield, and Sean stared at me expectantly, his breath beginning to frost. I need to tell you something, Sean, but you're not gonna like it, I finally admitted.